Hi all, welcome to the Empowering Equine podcast, where we talk about all things related to science-based training and management, positive reinforcement, Lima-focused training, and equine welfare and ethics. I'm your host, Alta van Niekerk. I'm often joined by my moderator and husband, previously known as the fiancé. Hope you enjoy this podcast and find inspiration to become the best horse person you can be for your horse. Welcome everybody to our first official episode. Today we're going to be talking about the use of punishment in the horse world, or rather the excessive use of punishment in the horse world. It is something I'm sure we have all seen to some degrees in our respective industries, disciplines, have you. The most recent incident on a large scale, I would say, being the Olympian Mark Todd case and the absolute divide it caused on social media. People saying Mark Todd did the right thing. Who are you to criticize how an Olympian trains?
I totally agree, because just because it is how the professionals does it doesn't make it right. It doesn't mean that it is morally correct.
Yeah, definitely. And it's our responsibility as the people who keep the equestrian sport going. We need to make sure we have high moral standards for what is allowed and what is not.
Especially with equestrians, because we work with animals. It's not just, is it ethically correct for humans? Now, animals who doesn't have a voice is also involved.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, a piece of sporting equipment like a tennis racket or
A motorbike,
a canoe, it can break. There's no moral line, I would say, for, you know, the poor motorbike, the poor tennis racket. You just replace the tennis racket, but there's so much more ethical standards that need to be met. And there's definitely lacking, in my opinion, in horse sports nowadays. Well, even he, unfortunately, after the fact, spoke against his actions, saying, and I quote, "I wholeheartedly apologize to the horse and all involved for my actions." In this video clip, one of the main things I preach is about establishing a mutual respect between horse and rider, and that patience and kindness is the best way to get results. I believe this is one of the main attributes, along with a great empathy with animals, that has enabled me to have a long and successful career in eventing. I'm very disappointed in myself that I did not adhere to that in this case. So that's great that he acknowledged, you know, what he did was wrong. But there were people petitioning. I don't know if there's a case, but there was a petition made for this case basically to be dropped, because to some what he did was right and there's nothing wrong with it.
It's just funny to me, in the first sentence of his quote, he said, "I wholeheartedly apologize to the horse and all involved for my actions in this video clip." So he doesn't apologize for his actions outside of video clips.
Yes, so, I mean, we can't say unless we actually go to his yard and find out how he trains his horses. But, you know, if he was so nonchalant about doing it at the clinic, in front of other people, in front of a camera, you know, what's going on back at the barn? You understand? You know, it's a slippery slope. We're only seeing things that are on the surface. There's a lot of things that go on that we don't know about, but it's our responsibility, I feel, to bring awareness to what's going on and the detriment of punishment. And that's what this podcast is going to be all about. And punishment happens at all levels. From starting out as a beginner, we have been taught you have to show the horse who's boss. not letting them get away with certain behaviors, and almost always the answer to that would be to hit the horse, to kick the horse. And it's unfortunate to say that that is the large majority of our experience. I know I've had trainers tell me to do exactly that, and if there are people who have not had this experience, I'm so happy that there's change and that there's people going against the norm, but unfortunately this is the norm. This is what is going on. If you speak to a large majority of horse people, that is how they are being taught to ride horses, is with dominance and punishment.
Even me.
Even you. I mean, all of us.
Yeah, most of us was taught, before the internet, most of us was taught, no, he's being naughty, don't let him eat, pull his head up, do this, do that, kick him in the ribs. We've all been there.
And I can almost guarantee you, regardless of industry or discipline, if you go to any equestrian event, you will find some sort of punishment happening all around you to some degree.
So you're saying some sort of punishment. Are there more than one form of punishment?
When we look at the 4 quadrants of learning theory, you have positive punishment, negative punishment, positive reinforcement, and negative reinforcement. For the punishment side, the goal of punishment is to make a undesired behavior less likely to occur. So we have positive punishment that involves adding an aversive consequence after an undesired behavior is emitted to decrease its future responses.
So can you give us an example of positive punishment?
Yes. Examples of positive punishment include smacking, hitting, or kicking the horse for bucking under saddle or not responding quickly enough, yanking the horse in the mouth for failing to stop or not stepping back quickly enough, punching or bumping. I hate it when people use that word, bumping a horse, in the nose for biting, or chasing a horse in the round pen or on the lunge line or in the field for not complying with our wishes. Those are all examples of positive punishment.
Okay, and if we have positive punishment, I think that logically there will be a negative punishment.
Yes, negative punishment includes taking away a certain reinforcing item after the undesired behavior happens in order to decrease future responses.
Okay, I'm confused. What is negative punishment in English?
This was something I struggled with to fully understand for a very long time. When we look at humans, an easy way to explain it is when your child does something you don't like. You say your TV privileges have been taken away. So you're taking something desirable away as a punishment for a certain behavior. With horses, and this is something that we see a lot this is a punishment that is correlated with positive reinforcement. When we withhold food, for whatever reason, the horse is starting to mug, you turn your shoulder and withhold food, that is negative punishment. You're withholding the food. You're taking something the horse wants and withholding it. So it's a fine line when working with positive reinforcement and not making it negatively punishing for them. Because we'll get into the fallout of punishment in a second now. But today we are mainly going to be talking about positive punishment.
It just sounds to me that negative punishment is just difficult to do correctly.
Yes, it doesn't work. It's not ideal. There's too much fallout. There's too much confusion. And there's too much frustration. So the idea is not to negatively punish behaviors. And when we talk about positive and negative, it doesn't mean good or bad. We're talking about it in the mathematical sense. Positive being adding a aversive, and negative is taking something away. Punishment is to decrease behavior. Reinforcement is to increase behavior.
Oh, okay. Now I understand.
Yes. And it's also important to take into account the individual horse is the one who determines what is punishing and what is not. For some horses, it's being in their presence is enough to be punishing for them. So that is something we should keep in mind, that something that one horse is totally okay with might not be okay for another horse.
Which makes sense.
Yes, training is the study of one. Each horse in front of you is a different case. You can't compare. It's the study of one.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about the fallout of coercion and punishment. We use coercion mostly exclusively to gain control of others and our horses. Many find it hard to imagine any other way of training horses other than with punishment or aversives.
Okay, what does coercion mean?
Coercion is making something aversive. What's aversion? It's something unpleasant, something uncomfortable, something that hurts potentially, something that's scary, something that's fearful. Anything that is a negative experience to the learner, horse, person, dog, whatever animal you're training or person you're training in front of you.
And she doesn't kid when she says person she's training. When I have done behaviors that she likes, she does clicker train me.
Yes. From a extract in Coercion and its Fallout by Sidmond, 1989, Sidmond proposes that coercion is at the root of many harmful and ineffective interpersonal and social practices. Behavior analysis has shown that they do not work. Coercion is in the long run self-defeating, and punishment eventually proves counterproductive. According to McGreevy and McLean, 2009, because horses are largely trained by negative reinforcement, they are susceptible to inadvertent punishment. Delays in the release of pressure can make desirable responses less likely and thus punish them.
This also sounds like a newbie can make more mistakes with negative reinforcement.
You can make mistakes with any training method. That's why I always advocate for getting help, getting guidance, getting mentorship. That's something I am very passionate about. If you want to learn more about positive reinforcement, go get guidance, advice, hear what it's all about. Same with negative reinforcement. They both, when done incorrectly, can cause harm to the animal and reinforce or punish behaviors that then causes problems.
So it can all result in unwanted behaviors.
Yes, if done incorrectly.
Then what would qualify as unwanted behavior? Is it wanted by the trainer, wanted by the horse?
I think it's important to keep in mind that every behavior serves a function to the animal performing the behavior, whether we like it or not. Horses perform behaviors out of avoiding something they don't like or to gain something they do want. If it's more reinforcing for a horse to drag you off to go graze, something is reinforcing that behavior. It's an undesired behavior for us, but that behavior is getting reinforced by the horse being able to graze, for example. This is just a quick example I can think off the top of my head. And at the end of the day, when I talk about undesired behaviors, it's undesirable for us, but it still forms a function to the horse.
Okay, then what are some of the fallout that can occur from punishment?
Okay, so there's a bunch, and I will link all my resources in the show notes for everybody so that they can have a closer look at everything. But the first thing that can occur is generalization, where fearful and aggressive responses evoked by punishment can spread to other entities. What this basically means is the horse creates associations when punishment has happened. For example, horses who are afraid of the trailer or horse box because they were hit because they didn't want to get in. Now they have developed a fear caused by punishment towards the horse box. That fear can spread to actually getting the halter on, simply approaching the horse box or trailer in itself. I would like to quote a section from the book Behavior Analysis for Lasting Change. When a stimulus shares properties with those present during punishment, it may evoke the same sort of reaction as those that happen during the punishment. So when the context of a behavior seems the same as an instance where the horse has found a negative association via punishment with something, the horse will make a link with those two instances. So
do you want to reference a Heartland episode?
I'm not going to reference a Heartland episode, but I will. It's in the newest season. I believe it's episode 4. I can't remember, but basically
It's the one with the adoptive kids.
it's the one with the foster kids.
The foster kids. Sorry, I
Yes.
don't watch the show. I just saw it in the background.
Yeah, but that's actually a very good example. The horse was being, sorry, spoiler alert for anybody who has
Yes,
not seen
major
the episode.
spoilers are
Please
alert.
skip ahead. Spoiler alert. But the horse was being scared in its stall with firecrackers by one of the foster children. And the horse started creating association with loud noises being scary. And the main character, Amy, helped the horse via desensitization to overcome its fear of loud noises. This is a show, but this is a good case study. It's not the scary noises, but it's that singular person. So every time that character, the foster child character, came into view of the horse, like,
Any loud noise would spook him.
yeah, any loud noise would
But only if the kid was there.
but only if the kid was there. So that's generalization. And if that went on untreated, every single loud noise would have become aversive towards the horse, and even more things would have, caused that negative association. So the next type of fallout that can occur from positive punishment is decreased motivation or explorative behaviors. I would like to quote from the book Learning and Behavior. If aversives are a common consequence of many kinds of behaviors, the results may be a suppression not only of the punished behavior, but behavior in general, resulting then in learned helplessness or a horse that is shut down. We can then conclude that punishment and aversives actually destroys the horse's seeking system. And if you don't know what the seeking system is, this is a 6 or 7 core emotions that came from a scientist, Jaak Panksepp.
Is the horse's seeking system like a type of curiosity?
Yes, the seeking system is explorative behaviors. When we train with positive reinforcement, you're working with the seeking system. It is a good emotion. It's a good emotional state. The horse is engaged and thinking. And the more we use punishment, the less motivation an animal has to engage, to explore, to try something new. I always say, I want my horses to see, or let me start like this. When people ask me now, how do I make robust horses? Robust being, how can they handle pressure? How can my horses handle pressure if I don't use pressure or aversives? And my simple answer for that is, I want my horses to see new things, potentially scary things, as an opportunity rather than a risk. I want my horses to see something new, and their first thought should be, I wonder how can I get something when I interact with this new thing. I've seen with my gelding Ali, he has a very long learning history of novel objects meaning something. So when I train a new behavior, when I do something new, he is very quick to, he problem solves, because he knows, this is not going to be, all of a sudden I'm doing something completely different / the rules have changed in the sense of now it's punishment based. I try and have my horses win as often as possible. to keep that try. And the more I do it, the more they are engaged, the more motivated they become, the more they want to be involved, the more robust they actually become, because I can ask of them things, even when it's not a formal training session, they still have the desire to take part, if I can put it like that. And that's because I do not use punishment. If I were to use punishment constantly, my horses would not have that same motivation to partake.
Exactly, because I also remember being in class in school, and the teacher that always used to hit me with a ruler, because that type of behavior was acceptable in those years. But the teacher that always used to hit me with a ruler, I didn't want to be in her class. I actually tried avoiding her class as much as possible.
Exactly. So let's talk about it from a relationship standpoint. If every time you came into the house, when you come home from the orchards or the pack house or wherever, and all I did was berate you for everything you have not done, and not acknowledging what you have done, thank you for washing the dishes, nothing like that. It's only, when are you going to change the light bulb? When are you going to do this? This still isn't done. That is punishing. You would rather go and get takeaways in town than come home to see me. Am I right?
You won't be wrong.
I guess you can't really say your true thoughts on that.
I can't, because that's not my reality.
Yeah.
I am actually really lucky that you take care of me so well.
But I mean, let's say this scenario was that way.
No, I wouldn't like it if I came home every day and I was being told how bad I am, how not worthy I am of this or that or whatever.
Yes, and same on my side, because you appreciate and reinforce me in the sense of acknowledging and being here with me is positively reinforcing for me. I find it reinforcing to help you around the house. And my point with that being is I have motivation because it is reinforcing for me.
Because I enjoy, say, your cooking, you are more prone to cook for me.
Yes. And because you reinforce me for cooking by acknowledging and saying thank you. If I would have gotten no feedback, or I've only heard, this should have had more salt, the texture isn't nice, just hearing everything that's wrong with the dish.
Which my family are very prone to doing.
I would rather say, what, let's just get a ready-made meal. I'm not going to cook for you if everything I do. I'm going to do the bare minimum. Let's put it like that. I'm going to do the bare minimum.
And at some point you would stop it altogether.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so that's decreased motivation and explorative behavior. What would the next one be?
The next one would be a conditioned suppression or learned helplessness. This is actually a big one, and I think we see a lot of horses in a learned helplessness state.
Can I take a guess at what that might be?
Yes, you can.
Is that freezing?
It can be freezing. It is a coping mechanism, the same as freezing. It's a survival mechanism, but I would say it is more of a learned state of mind. I'm speaking here out of air a bit, but let's hear what I'm going to read an extract from Learned Helplessness, Theory and Evidence from the Journal of Experimental Psychology. When an organism is exposed to a uncontrollable, non-contingent and inescapable aversion, there is a general shutdown referred to as learned helplessness. So the horse no longer reacts towards the punishment/aversive, but it's still feeling the same feelings. The horse no longer reacts towards the punishment/aversion, but it's still feeling the same feelings, fear/aggression. The horse is just in a state where, you know what? The best way to escape the punishment is just to shut down.
A typical mindset of this too shall pass.
Yeah. I like to think of it as a very deep depression. You're on autopilot in a sense. You're just coping. And how it looks in horses, is, horses will often look sleepy. I've seen videos where horses are being, absolutely flooded with stimuli and scary things. And all of a sudden the horse just looks dead calm. And that's a learned helplessness state. That's a horse that is shut down. It has learned that the way to get rid of this is to just endure until it stops.
I'm picturing a horse just standing in the rain with its ears hanging, just waiting for it to pass until it can continue.
Yes, and they have these half-closed eyes. It might not be in all cases, but you will still see a lot of tension. Let's call it its brow. It's a triangular wrinkle on the top of his eye. It's not the eyelid, right above the eyelid. It makes a triangular wrinkle. Those wrinkles are very prominent. The nostrils are often flared or drawn back. You will see wrinkles and they're very, very rounded. And with the mouth and the chin is very prominent in the sense of it is clenched very prominently. It's not hanging loosely. And you will see wrinkles around the mouth, and the mouth is clenched shut and drawn back a bit. The horse seems calm, but all those signs indicate that she is not okay with what is going on. The next fallout that can occur is the reinforcement of the punisher, i.e. the trainer resulting in more aversive training. So I'm going to take an extract from Introduction to Learning and Behavior by Powell et al. The person who applies the aversive is strongly reinforced when it succeeds. Applying punishment easily becomes habitual and easily escalates. The more a trainer uses punishment and the desired behavior is performed, the trainer is more likely to apply punishment again, in spite of the horse's negative emotional state. In my opinion, that's one of the most dangerous results, fallout from using punishment, is that it's so easy and it requires no shaping plan in the sense of, you just do it. And that is reinforcing enough to make it easier to do it the next time again. And with punishment, it doesn't really give an answer in the sense of you're just punishing a behavior, but what are you actually addressing? What the cause of the behavior is, and this can be from pain, medical issues, anything like that, fear, anger / aggression, any of those things. It never addresses the root cause of the undesired behavior. It only punishes the behavior.
Okay, so what you're saying is, for example, I break my leg. Now my leg hurts. Now I'm drinking pain pills because my leg hurts. But I'm only treating the symptom, that is pain. If for me to get my leg healed, I have to go to a doctor, get it operated on if necessary, treat the cause and not the symptom.
Exactly, that is exactly spot on. Like, I can't even add more to that. Another analogy I like using is a snake bite. It's like putting a plaster on a snake bite or a spider bite or any other venomous animal. It's gone. You're not seeing it anymore because you've masked it, because the animal is now too afraid to show their true emotions because they are in a learned helplessness state and they're just dealing with it. But underneath all that venom is spreading to other areas, and one day it's going to end up, not always, but it might end up in a very serious situation where someone might get hurt. And another fallout from using punishment is, that I also think is one of the main issues, is we're modeling the behavior to others. People who observe someone making use of punishment may be more likely to use punishment themselves. I mean, I'm just taking that from how I grew up. It was normal to pop the lead rope when your horse did something you perceived as naughty or defiant or disrespectful. And those labels are all topics for another podcast. but it was so normalized.
So it's basically a typical monkey see, monkey do situation.
Yes, and yes, it's basically that. You are normalizing the behavior. So let's take it back to the Mark Todd situation. The incident happened at a clinic. There were probably 20 riders there, seeing how Mark Todd got the horse into the water jump.
Oh, is it that guy?
Yes.
Ah, okay. I thought it was maybe the lady who hit the horse at the Olympics on TV. Because
Oh, no. That's also the whole thing. Like, if we have to go through all the instances, we would sit here until...
But that Mark Todd thing is not... That wasn't, in my opinion, that wasn't positive punishment. That was just assault.
Yeah,
That was brutal.
That was brutal. And there were people who actually argues that he didn't even touch the horse.
No.
Like, you
That
did
was...
they listen it with sound? Anyway, but, you know, those 20 students who were there saw what an Olympic rider did to get a horse to do something that he first didn't want to. Number one, that's reinforcing using punishment. Number two, that is making it normalized. And I would be very certain to think that they would practice that with their own horses at home, resulting in more people seeing it and more people practicing it. So it's kind of like this vicious cycle. It's the snowball effect where it's normal. It becomes normal. And I know it's not in all instances that way. Like, for me and you, it's not the normal. It's not how we handle our horses if they don't want to do something. But at a commercial yard, it might be more normalized. Maybe not to that extent, but to some extent.
And also because money is involved. I have a friend, or I used to have a friend. He's still alive, but he's not my friend anymore. But his business would be getting horses under the saddle. And if he could do 10 horses in a month or 20 horses in a month, he would get paid per horse. So he would generally use positive punishment, but very hard positive punishment to get his horses under saddle, because he argued it's the fastest way. It's so he gets paid more per month, which I understand as a businessman, but as a human, it just grinded my gears. So, but he got caught for other things now, so he's not in the picture anymore.
That's kind of like a whole other, like, very deep discussion we can have in regards to...
In the 6th episode of the Empowering Econ, we will discuss the corruption of money.
And that's, once again, when we talk about professionals, you know, there's money involved. There's a whole bunch of things involved there that just, I would say, clouds judgment. In the sense, if you were just a person on your own property, your own horses just... you know, enjoying them for leisure, that same person would act differently, you know. So that's kind of like a whole different discussion on its own, and we would once again sit here for...
Yes, we have to get back to our fallouts. How many fallouts do we have left? Because it seems that there's quite a bit of fallouts for using positive punishment.
Immediately, what we're going to be discussing today, we only have one more fallout to discuss, and that is escape/avoidance and other behavioral issues. So I'm going to read an extract from Operant Behavior and Areas of Research and Applications by, I hope I'm saying the name correctly, Honig.
Spelled Honig.
Yes. A punished organism becomes avoidant of the people who delivered the punishment, the location in which it was delivered, and or other elements of the environment associated with the punishment. The avoidance is negatively reinforced, which can cause a cascade of other undesirable behaviors. So this is kind of like generalization, where the association spreads, and it usually spreads back in time. And in some very extreme cases, horses might develop an aversion towards people or a certain person, simply coming and getting them out of their paddock or stall or however the setup is. The punishment in itself doesn't stay, right there. It doesn't happen singularly there and the horse is fine and doesn't create any other associations. But the association grows and spreads, and the animal tries to avoid that and tries to stay away. Like, for instance, horses who are barn sour, or no, not barn sour, horses who are ring sour. There might be a lot of reasons a horse might be ring sour, but if we use the principles of learning theory, the ring is punishing. Whether it causes pain due to ill saddle fit, or there's a lot of punishment happening, a lot of force happening, a lot of aversions happening in the ring, the horse would want to avoid the ring as far as possible. So that's a way ring sourness can occur. So the horse is avoiding.
Can escape and avoidance also be, for example, if you go for an outride and the horse wants to run away to get back to the house for the ride to finish?
That can definitely be. I mean, if the ride is so undesirable / scary, fearful, anxiety-inducing that it becomes punishing, the horse would want it to end as quickly as possible. So increasing their stride lengths, or becoming like jiggy is another word, to get home as quickly as possible. That can definitely be. The ride isn't reinforcing enough for them to calmly partake. And for some horses, it's very stressful to actually go out on a hack. For some, not all, but especially alone, if they have a very strong bond with their pasture mate or herd members or their food, it might be very punishing to take them away from their herd.
But then again, we could argue, is the pasture rewarding or is the ride punishing?
Yes, exactly. So it's more rewarding to be in a field with 24/7 forage with social interactions than on a ride alone in an unknown environment.
So it comes from both sides. The one side is pulling and the other side is pushing.
Yeah, you can say it like that, I would say. Yeah.
It all makes sense to me now.
I hope so. Oh, okay, there's a last one. Sorry. There's one last.
Big shocker. We have one more fallout.
Sorry. So the last one is actually having injuries from the punishment. And I would like to quote from the Journal of Veterinary Behavior, Clinical Application and Research. An organism can be injured from the application of an aversive in punishment or negative reinforcement. These are more in very extreme cases.
But give me an example of an extreme case.
Open horse TikTok and you will see plenty. The immediate ones I can think of is hard tying with a rope halter that doesn't release. And the horse goes into a panic because it's trapped and it has not been properly habituated to being hard-tied. The horse will pull back and actually injure his poll and his spine. And, each body part affects another part of a horse. So that can result in serious injury. The use of very harsh tools. I've seen horses who have been spurred to the point of scarring and bleeding.
Breaking the skin.
Sorry?
So it's just breaking the skin.
Yeah, it's breaking the skin. And there are bits that causes bleeding, there's a lot of pain that can be caused by some bits.
For example, fitting a bit upside down.
Yeah, but those are like in cases where people have no guidance. And that's due to being uneducated in the sense of, you're making a mistake, and that's to the detriment of the horse. I completely understand that. But there are people who, once again, right at the top levels of the sport, and their horses come out of a class event, a show with blood streaming out of their mouths. And I would not argue that to be uneducatedness. I would argue that as ignorance. With the person I'm thinking of right now, what's her name? Little. Miriam Little? Something like that, but she's an eventer. And she has been known for her horses coming out of cross-country events with blood in their mouths. And if it has happened so many times, that's ignorance. That's not uneducated. That's not being uneducated. That's complete ignorance. And people who intentionally flood their horses to the point of horses charging through gates, whipping a horse to inflict pain and injury. The list goes on, honestly, and it's very sad.
We live in a cruel world.
Yes. So that's all the fallout that I've compiled. And I would like to end this with my own
closing thoughts.
My own closing thoughts / my own feelings, or not feelings, my quote about, punishment. And it goes as follows. You're welcome to quote me. No horse should be punished for feeling. And those feelings can be scared, stressed, frustrated, feeling in pain, feeling uncomfortable, feeling confused, feeling tense, feeling unsure, feeling conflicted, forgiving an undesired behavior from our perspective, because we just said, every behavior serves the horse, and for having negative associations with certain things, pressure, tack, food, grooming, anything like that. Horses deserve a fair chance and deserve to be given the benefit of the doubt, not just simply because punishment is easier in the moment. Stepping back and reevaluating, how can we help this horse? How can we make this easier? How can we make this clearer? I think that is something that mindset alone can definitely take one a bit further.
That was really beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of the show.
Yes.
If there is anything that you think we missed, if you're not agreeing with us, or not us, if you're not agreeing with Alta, let us know.
Yes, and once again, all my links will be
your references.
My references will be links in the show notes, so please feel free to have a look at those. I will link my Instagram posts that inspired this discussion as well. And also, if you don't mind, if you would like, give us a review.
Yeah, we'd like to know how we're doing.
We would like to know how we're doing. If you have any suggestions or further ideas or discussions.
Yes, currently it feels like we're walking in the dark.
Yes, you're more than welcome to send me a DM on Instagram at Empowering Equine. It's just at Empowering Equine. I'm on Facebook as well. I'm just not as active on Facebook. I'm more active on Instagram, and I'm on TikTok as well. Not very active on TikTok. Don't expect too much, but I'm on TikTok as well. So let's encourage some positive, humane horse training on there if you would like.
Let's flood the algorithm.
Let's flood the algorithm with humane, kind horsemanship. And I think that's it.
Just hug your horse.
Yeah, hug your horse and be kind to one another. Goodbye.